Okay, folks, I'm back with some more updates from my visit to the David trial, and in this video I'm going to be explaining to you everything the detective said that David had ordered on Amazon to his house, allegedly after committing the murder, and exactly what David's defense clapped back with. And I'm not going to lie to you, this was one of those moments of the trial where I thought, ooh, David's defense has got a few moves in their arsenal, they got a few tricks up their sleeve, and David's lawyer, Blair Burke, came with some pretty interesting theories that were very effective. So obviously, if you watched the last video that I just broke down about all of the horrible, harrowing evidence that was shown of, you know, what was inside the bag that was found in the Tesla, the awful state of Celeste's remains, you know, just horrible, horrible stuff. Rest in peace, Celeste, and just chilling stuff that just will haunt me for the rest of my life, if I'm completely honest with you. If you want to learn more about that, go and watch that video. But in this video, that detective basically continued his testimony. He would kind of go into deeper detail about these alleged ordered items. And you know, David was allegedly using two fake names on Amazon, Victoria Mendez and Travion Davis. That's the first time we've heard Travion Davis. We've heard Victoria Mendez mentioned before, but we haven't heard kind of, you know, this mention of this mysterious Travion Davis. So what I want to do is I'll probably show you some stuff on Amazon, but I want to be careful that I don't leak my address, because that would be bad. That would be very bad. All right, let me just check. Hang on. So the first thing that kind of came up on David's shopping list, I suppose, for getting rid of the body was these two cadaver bags, these two body bags, and two different types of body bags were purchased. These were kind of quite interesting, and I did find the exact body bags that I believe David did actually purchase. So I believe one of them was this Primacare body bag stretcher combo that basically, you know, it had these three handles on the top and bottom, and then one handle on either side. So that was kind of one of the body bags that he allegedly purchased. I've kind of been able to sort of reverse engineer pretty much the exact body bags that he had ordered. So it was one set like this. So that was the Primacare BB3201 body bag. I guess there's all categories of them. And then this other one, and this one was kind of really stuck out to me. This one was kind of a different type of body bag, and notably this one said City Morgue on it. To me, it seemed like this one was kind of more of a, you know, sort of like a prop, like a movie prop kind of bag. Rather than this one, which seems to be like a genuine cadaver pouch that is actually highly rated and one of the most popular on here. And a lot of people have bought these, interestingly enough. So another purchase that was made was these kind of heavy-duty laundry bags. This one was a little bit hard to see, so I was sort of towards the back of the courtroom, but I'm fairly certain it was this cotton-style laundry bag. I do think that it may well have been this exact one, but I don't want to get it wrong, but I do seem to remember there being kind of various colors available like this. So this sort of heavy-duty laundry bag was purchased under Travion Davis. It was a pack of two of these heavy-duty laundry bags that was purchased. And again, it just kind of goes to show, you know, look, it clearly can have several purposes, but when you're in the situation David's in, there ain't too many scenarios that you can really go to. I think maybe it actually could well have been this pack of two extra large laundry bags, because these came in twos. But essentially, this was kind of like a more of a generic product. But what was next was very specific. So this was the exact kiddie pool that David had brought. This is the exact listing. The 8x8 with electric pump and ground tarp included. The ground tarp probably, you know, was a useful kind of accessory that came with it. And it had reinforced seams. This is the exact item, the exact kiddie pool that was purchased. And along with that, there were two chainsaws that were purchased. And this is just the Amazon listing so far. So there was a WEN electric chainsaw. This was the exact model, corded 12 amp with 16-inch blade on it. And then there was another one that was I believe it was a Tytok hand-powered saw, and this was kind of a smaller with kind of like a you know, like a sort of hand-powered. So it was this model in, I believe, a sort of red or pinkish color, but it was this exact tool essentially, and this, I believe, it came in pink, and he actually purchased it in pink, which again is super creepy when you think that this is actually the kind of thing that Celeste probably would have chosen it in pink as well. If they made a Hello Kitty one, they probably would have got that as well, which is just sad to think about. But that's really what was going on with him, unfortunately. So that was the exact chainsaw that was purchased. And while all of this was being shown in court, David just rested his head on his chin like that. He just looked the whole time at the screen, looking at absolutely everything that he had bought. He looked a little bit defeated, but he also didn't really look too rattled or shocked. He was just kind of like, the whole way through, Amazon item after Amazon item, just like that. So basically, we were shown pictures of both of these chainsaws in his house. They were found, which apparently they were found in the garage with the blue inflatable pool. So the exact kiddie pool that I just showed you, all of this was found in the garage, and this kiddie pool was obviously, they found these blue plastic fragments in her wounds. They found the pool itself uninflated, and they also basically found kind of several other items that were purchased on different platforms. So these were apparently ordered through Uber or Postmates. Maybe it was Uber Eats. Like I order groceries and you know, I might order like a SD card from Uber Eats, from Target or something, Best Buy if I'm really desperate or if I want to shoot or something like that. So other items that were apparently purchased, this exact Makita chainsaw was purchased from Home Depot and it was delivered by Uber Postmates. I don't know if that's Uber Eats or Postmates or if they had some collab. I don't know what was going on back then. I don't even know how, whether it was one or the other, but this was the exact chainsaw. Now I'm going to tell you something very, very interesting. This chainsaw, out of all three of those chainsaws, this one was never found. And I believe that this is the one that was used to dismember Celeste. And as you're going to find out, I mean, I'll just tell you, the other two chainsaws were found in the property with no traces of blood or DNA on them. This chainsaw, never found. If this is found, it would cook him, but it was not found. Okay? So those other ones that was purchased, this was purchased from Postmates. The other ones was purchased, basically... The other ones were purchased from Amazon and they were still found in his property. There was also a sort of mop and bucket system, a tornado spin mop. This exact Libman green tornado spin mop was ordered from the sort of Postmates site. He also ordered a shovel. I believe there was actually, I think I had the exact listing for the shovel. Where was it? This was the shovel that was ordered, not from Amazon, I believe, but from a Postmates type service. 28-inch mini garden shovel with a D-grip alloy, D-grip, or is it short wooden handle? I think it was sort of very similar to these two. It was on a different website to Amazon, but essentially D-grip handle with a wooden neck. I guess I'm not really a shovel expert. I've not had to do any of this depraved stuff at all. But so they showed everything that he had ordered from Amazon, Postmates, everything like that. They then basically showed his tattoos as well. It was kind of a little bit mixed up. They showed the Amazon stuff, then they showed the tattoos that were taken, pictures of his tattoos that were taken after he was arrested. They showed the shush tattoo on his finger, and they showed a Celeste tattoo on his finger. The Celeste tattoo was red and kind of faded. It looked like maybe he had tried to have it removed unsuccessfully, but the shush tattoo was much thicker and stronger, and obviously, as I said in a previous video, Celeste was found with a shush tattoo that was very thick, black, looked like it was quite recent. It looked a lot more recent than David's tattoos, to be honest with you. Now, David didn't make a move this whole time. Whole time sat there like this, just looking at the screen. I thought that was interesting because when they're showing you all these tattoos on his finger and the shush and the Celeste, it's kind of like, it was almost like he was covering them up, kind of like that. Just looking straight up at the screen. It was super creepy. But anyway, another thing that was apparently purchased that was interesting was this fireproof mat. Obviously, we heard about the burn cage. That wasn't kind of brought up here. But basically, the fireproof mat was quite an interesting find. And it was this exact model, an ASTM D643 flame-resistant mat, basically, that is completely unburnable, okay, up to 3,000 Fahrenheit. I don't understand what on earth you would need 3,000 Fahrenheit for, but I guess that's what it's for. And again, that was ordered by Travion Davis. Okay, it is kind of crazy. So all of that, there was a long pause after the fireproof mat, and I noticed that David kind of like, He sort of like rolled his head from side to side. He seemed a little bit impatient at this point. It looked like he was starting to get quite irritated with all of these Amazon purchases that he had made in his darkest hours being brought up. At this point, the clerk actually brought David over a drink, and then they kind of ended the interview about the Amazon stuff. And that's when Blair Burke's opportunity to grill the detective back was brought up. Let me take a drink. Okay. So after that, that's when Blair Burke basically clapped back at the detective from the LAPD's robbery homicide division and basically asked him a lot of questions. So asked him if he was the main investigator and said that he was, along with his partner. Said that he kind of supervised and looked over the evidence at the tow yard on September the 8th, along with criminalists from the medical examiner's office. They basically had to process the vehicle, the body, the plastic bags, the body bags. He basically, explained that he processed all the body bags and all those kind of things. Said the vehicle was processed the next day after it was taken to the LAPD. And there was a very interesting back and forth. And at this point, I started just typing out everything that was said. So I could pretty much tell you verbatim what happened over the next section. And this was probably this was probably Blair Burke's finest hour in the courtroom, because I feel like she actually picked a lot of holes in what the detectives kind of put forward. Again, I don't think that this indicates any sort of innocence on David's behalf, but what I do think it indicates is that there are definitely a few things that maybe weren't quite done the best way, and this might cause David's the prosecution some problems at trial. So Blair said that basically you arrived at the tow yard after the medical examiner. The detective said, that's incorrect. I arrived after the local detectives, but prior to the medical examiner. They said, well, the crime logs indicate you arrived, and then basically said you took over from the Hollywood Auto detectives. And the detective said, I took over from West Bureau, who took over from West Hollywood. So it was basically like the West Hollywood detectives were then taken over by the West Bureau, were then taken over by the special unit of the robbery homicide division. So there were a lot of handovers in this situation that weren't ideal. So but Blair said, how long was the West Bureau at the scene? I'm just gonna read this. So apologies, I'm not looking at the camera. I'm just gonna read this so you've got kind of the best information. I might even show you my notes. Let me just show you my notes. Hang on a minute. It will be easier if I just show you the blooming notes. I can just read this to you. So I'm going to show you my notes, my full notes, all right? I was going to upload these to Patreon or something. I don't know. I'm going to, my free Patreon. I could upload these so you could just read them if you wanted to. And they basically said, okay, how long was the West Bureau at the scene? Hollywood was notified around 11 a.m. With notifications sent to West Bureau, who were then just a few hours prior to the LAPD arrival. And then Blair says, was the West Bureau there when the vehicle was opened and the bags were discovered? Detective says, no. It said, when you arrived, was the vehicle open and the bags unzipped? He replied, the front was open and the body bags were partially unzipped. She said, who opened those bags? It said, an officer from Hollywood. She brought up a photo from criminalists taken on September the 8th, 2025 from the Hollywood tow yard, showed another gruesome picture that we hadn't seen of the remains in the bag from a different angle, and that was kind of shocking because the courtroom really wasn't prepared to see that again. There was no really forewarning for that. So he would reply, when he arrived, the bag with the body parts was still in the car. That was under the cadaver bag. It hadn't been moved. The second bag wasn't noticed until they took out the first bag. And she asked, was this image taken when the body was removed? And he said, it's hard to tell, but the body's clearly not in that picture. She says, when you first arrived, the medical examiner had already interacted with the bag in the vehicle. Beth kind of objected to that, but it was allowed. She kind of rephrased, said, did you inspect the vehicle and unzip the bag? He said, I didn't touch the vehicle, and we don't, by law, touch the bodies. That's the medical examiner's job. She said, so when you approached the vehicle, how long until the medical examiner arrived? And he said, less than an hour. So basically said, saw the medical examiner remove the cadaver bag and observe and open the second bag. She said, who directed the bags to be removed? He said him or his partner, basically. Could have been him. I messed the third and the first person up there. She said, were you the one directing that both bags be taken into evidence? And this is where she kind of played a smart little card. I'm not going to lie to you. He said the bag was not taken as evidence. After consulting with the criminal supervisor, due to its contents not being able to be preserved, decomposition and liquefaction didn't allow them to be stored, so they just cut off the handles and the zippers for processing. If you remember, go rewind the video because I can't pull it up because I'm on these notes. But go and have a look back, all right, if you want, or I could just pull it up. The handles on the side of those cadaver bags, all right, which were, these handles were cut off. It was this exact bag. So they cut off the handles, they cut off the zippers from the bags. They kept those because they thought DNA might have been on them. But the inside of the bag was just liquefied remains, said we couldn't keep it. It was unpreservable. And as I explained in my earlier video, I think that is going to be a problem for the prosecution, because it's going to come out eventually that it's going to kind of be like, oh, why didn't you keep those bags? So she followed up. She said, once the limbs and torsos and head removed, you didn't take either of the bags into evidence? And he said, well, we didn't take the cadaver bag with the torso and head. We consulted with the LAPD criminalist, and they don't recall if the second bags with the limbs was taken or not. And they said, was any testing done before the bag was released? And after consulting the criminalist, they said the best action, take anything out that most likely would have been touched, like the handles and the zipper. And she said, was any other testing applied outside the body bag or plastic bag? Did you get any fingerprint swabs, blue star misting? He said, no, the decomposition in the environment was so bad, they just said, let's cut the components of the bag off and keep those. And then she said, if the medical examiner indicated the black body bag contents were collected and placed and sealed into biohazard bags, and as she was talking, DA Beth Silverman objected. That was sustained because they basically said that they were referring to stuff that wasn't in evidence. You can't talk about what wasn't in evidence. You can only talk about what was and question, basically, like, why isn't that in evidence? But you can't refer to contents of the bag that were not collected, basically. And they said the black body bag and contents was put into, sealed into a biohazard bag. They said, so you forensic the Tesla the next day. Did you take any items in for evidence? Did you take any other evidence? Now, Beth objected to that. They basically said, Blair, you can't just ask what evidence was taken. The judge agreed. They said, look, this is a preliminary hearing. This isn't discovery. You had discovery. You should have already established, what was allowed and what is going to be brought up and what isn't. They said, you can't ask for potential items, potential evidence, theoretical evidence that was or wasn't collected. We're just going to stick to the evidence that was collected, basically, and stick to that. So Blair would continue, was there any other physical items taken into evidence on September the 9th? He said, I don't recall all of what was taken aside from the swabs. She said, you said earlier you wrote a search warrant for one of the properties and executed it on September the 17th, 2025. Gonna have to blur that, aren't I? Okay. So she says, you were in the detective in charge of that search? And he says, yeah, it was a big place. We had a lot of people working across all 3 floors, moved from garage to first and second floor. So basically they're talking about that property. And she's kind of trying to poke holes, saying, did you get a log? Did you really record who was doing what? And she said, did you keep a crime log of all the detectives that were present who came and left? Beth objected to this questioning, but the judge was like, no, it's allowed. I'm going to let him ask this. I'm going to let her ask this. And she said, did anyone log who was arriving and leaving? And the detective kind of sidestepped it. He said, well, there's detailed notes from the detectives about who was doing what. But she said, what? But no crime scene log. And he was like, nah. And then she said, you and your partner gave instructions to criminalists for items they were looking for, right? Like tools or instruments or weapons that could be used for dismemberment. He said, yeah, this was a week into the investigation, so we didn't really know exactly what we were looking for other than tools for a dismembered body. She said, you gave specific instructions to look for tools that could be used in a dismemberment. He said, yes. She said, earlier you said there was a burn cage that you found at the home. He said, yes. She said, did you personally identify this? He said, I saw it unopened on the second floor of the residence near the patio above the stairs. She said, at the time of the search, did you document its discovery? He said, yes, they took pictures. She said, did you test it with chemical agents? And he was like, test the unopened box? No. And that kind of got a few little giggles in the courtroom. There were a few of these moments where it's like people just kind of bust out laughing. And honestly, it was a bit weird. It was a bit weird. Some of it wasn't very funny. I got neck ache that I'm trying to fix from just hunching over my laptop all day. Catching injuries off this case, man. So basically it said, okay, well, your testimony is you knew it was a burn cage at the time of the search warrant. And he says, yep. She said, well, let me show you the exhibit. She showed the box and she said, is it your testimony that LAPD took this pic at the search? He said, you personally identified it as a burn cage on that day. He says, I saw it that day. And she said, but you didn't take it into evidence or collect it. He said, correct. So he didn't open the box. He said, you testified earlier, let's be clear, the burn cage you talk of having discovered on September 17th, you indicated you determined it was an Amazon order of some kind of burn cage. He said, yes. Cage was ordered July 2025, not April. Yes. So she kept asking about all these items and said, were they ordered after the murder? So I felt like this was her really trying to find an angle to downplay the premeditation element of it. Kept saying you found a number of chainsaws and electric saws, right? Said, yeah, 2 chainsaws and a straight saw blade. A straight blade saw. Said 3 saws, yep, 2 in a garage, 1 on the second floor. So it was a regular saw, but it wasn't the other chainsaw. Said, so you tested those with Blue Star and phenolphthalein, right? Maybe I've got that word wrong, but I don't even know. But basically, they tested it for blood. Said all three tested negative for blood. He said, correct. He tested for DNA too. He said, I don't remember if the criminalist swabbed the handles. She said, so you never even collected those items at all? He said, yes, once they were swabbed for blood, they were left behind and not collected. So she said, items potentially used for dismemberment, you didn't even collect them for any matching saw marks for the dismemberment. And he said, well, when the criminalist tested them and found no blood, then they didn't collect them and they just checked for more evidence if needed. And she said there could have been DNA, and he said no. She said no DNA testing was ever performed on these. And then Beth objected. The judge sustained it and basically said, look, you were talking in circles, has been answered already, and there's no DNA on them. They didn't test it. They didn't find it. There was no chance of it. No blood, no DNA, no point. Okay. So they said, okay, showed a photo of the property. Blur that again. They'll be saying, I'm bullying David now. Oh, you're bullying David because you showed his famous address where he allegedly did a murder. Anyway, sorry, I'm so tired. I need to go to bed. So then she said the chainsaws, the two chainsaws that you described earlier, are those in the back of this image, the photo of the orange chainsaw. And she said, yeah, that's the pink one. That's one, and then the pink one next to it. Did these match the Amazon orders make and model? Yep. Did you do the pink one? Yep. They match the Amazon orders. So after finishing the search, you collected, along with a criminalist, a significant number of items of potential biological and physical evidence. Said yes. It said you collected and booked a number of cell phones and computers. Yes. Did you personally collect those? He said, I didn't. I don't know. I'd have to check. She said, but you said you collected 4 cell phones. He said, I think I discussed one, but multiple were recovered. Basically saying, I found one and other people found the others. He said, how many? He said, 2 in a garage, 2 upstairs, multiple laptops and a PC tower and an Apple monitor computer. It was like an all-in-one monitor computer. And she said, and the cell phone you testified was a cell phone on the second floor coffee table. He said, top floor, it's like a garage on the bottom, then the first floor, then the second floor with a den where the iPhone 15 was found. And then says, she said, can I show defense see the iPhone 15 Pro Max recovered in the search? A photo of the phone. He said, yep, this is the phone. She said, how do you know it's an iPhone 15? He said, the warrant and cell phone extraction indicated it. She said, the cell phone extraction was with a warrant after recovery. He said, yep, but you didn't open the phone in any way before. He said, yeah. So she said, so you wrote a series of search warrants after you discovered the iPhone 15 related to the discovery of the phone. And he went, she said, let me rephrase. After, oh my God. I'm taking it off screen. I'm taking it off. This is a joke. Oh my God. All right. No. I'm cyberbullying because I said your address that's on the news. Oh, I can't stand this. All right. What a joke. All right, it was my mistake even showing you that. That was nonsense. Better not cyberbully a murderer. All right. So basically said, let me rephrase, after that, you did a search warrant for Celeste's iCloud after the iPhone was discovered there. He said, I wrote for Celeste's iCloud based on her descriptors, but then also her other numbers and email addresses. And so she said, so you wrote a sworn affidavit on September the 17th that the property was searched, and one of the items recovered was an iPhone 15 Pro Max with an email associated with Celeste, which I won't read you, but it's there. I'm glad that's not on screen, that you believe belonged to Celeste. And then he said, I don't know the date on the warrant. And then he said, I can show it to you. So they're basically trying to say that, one, he was lying about how he knew this was Celeste's phone in the house. So what she was trying to do was sort of line him up with this kind of twisted line of questioning, where it was like, how did you know it was an iPhone 15? Well, we got all the information off of it. Well, how did you know the information off of it when you filed the subpoena that asked for it as an iPhone 15? And how did you know it was Celeste's? Kind of didn't really have an answer for that, okay? And I would say that during this period, David looked a little bit perked up. He was kind of like puckering his lips, having a few sips of water. He looked a little bit happy, like, oh, this was starting to go his way. Because the detective was sort of talking himself around in circles. So she said, I'll show it to you. She showed him the warrant. And then she asked me, and he said, you testified an iPhone 15 Pro Max was found. And he said, I said iPhones were recovered. She said, you represented the iPhone 15 Pro Max was a phone you believe belonged to Celeste Rivas. Hello. She says, if it refreshes your memory, I can show you. And so the detective looked closely at it. And then he says that the email address belongs to her, but not necessarily the phone. She says, does it refresh your memory? She said, not if... the detective says, not if the question is, I knew the phone belonged to her. She said, you said it was an iPhone 15 Pro Max and you identified Celeste's iCloud. So Beth started interjecting here a lot and basically saying this is argumentative. And then Blair kind of claps back, says, look, the people will allege info was found on the phone belonging to David, but they believe that it didn't belong to him. Now, I heard people afterwards in the courthouse trying to say that this is going to be a smart move, saying that they basically... and they alleged that stuff was found on the phone that belonged to David, but it actually didn't belong to him. It was someone else's phone. And allegedly, some of these illegal videos of naughty, illegal things being done with minors might have been on her phone. And he's going to basically try and get off of the production of illegal videos charges on the basis that it was her phone and she was doing it. That's what I think is what they were putting forward. So basically, the judge said that the people, the state didn't bring this up. They can't question on this line anymore. It's kind of getting a little bit out of control. So they kind of move on. Blair then says, after the search, there was a release to the scene. No preservation of the property once you left. The detective says, yeah, I don't remember what time we left. It could have been after midnight. But basically, after that, all day or all nighter search, they released the property back to the owner. And then after that, Blair said, in testimony about the items ordered, chainsaws, body bags, laundry bags, shovels, all of those items were determined to be ordered after April 24th, 2025. Detective says yes. Blair said none of those items were ordered prior to the date of the alleged murder. Basically, that was it. Blair said, I rest my case there. That's it. That's all I want to ask. So basically, she kind of dropped the mic, basically saying all that stuff that you showed, chainsaws with no blood on them, shovels that were never found, other chainsaws that were never found, no body bag was preserved. The body, you can't necessarily prove, or at least at this stage is the argument she's making, is that the body bag that Celeste was found in was the one he ordered off of Amazon. And they're saying that the body bag was ordered after the murder. At least she's trying to get rid of the premeditation, but then she's also trying to kind of argue that it's like, what body bag? He ordered a body bag off Amazon. I mean, it's a bit of a reach, right? She was found in a body bag. He ordered a body bag off Amazon. But again, he ordered 2 body bags. Only one ends up getting used and the other's a garbage bag. So it's a little bit confusing. So after this, Beth kind of but it's kind of her turn to ask a few more questions. Shows a photo of the black Tesla in the tow yard. Basically just says, was this the condition of the Tesla with the dents in the back? He says, yep. It was covered in dust. She says, yep. Was it the same license plate? He says, yep. Exactly the same as the car was parked at in the property before it was towed. Says, yeah, and then that's it. She just rests her case. She basically said, yeah, same car, parked outside his property. We've proved that he drove that car, parked it. It's turned up with the body in it. He ordered a cadaver bag. Job's a good one, basically. She's not trying to hear it. So Blair would then kind of have her opportunity to ask a few more questions. Said there was extensive damage identified on the back of the car at the tow yard. The detective basically confirmed, yeah, there was damage at the bottom of the picture that we could see. The rear bumper was kind of warped. There was damage near the license plate. And that vehicle was taken into evidence from the tow yard. And she said once again, was there any testing that was performed on I'm getting distracted now. You gonna sit there? You sit there. Just sit there. Just sit there. You look like you're gonna do something very dirty, naughty on my desk. Don't do that. Don't show him that. That's gonna be X-rated. All right. So basically he said, so no testing was performed on the trunk or the damaged exterior of the vehicle. And the detective was like, I didn't think there would be. And she said, no testing. He was like, yeah, just photos. We just took photos of it. And then this is where another kind of ruckus of laughter was unleashed into the courtroom. They said, so you just released the vehicle to be destroyed? And he said, well, no, I didn't release the vehicle to be destroyed. And then Blair says, like, what did you do? What do you do? Just release the vehicle into the wild? And everyone kind of laughed at that. And Beth kind of objected. And then like he basically replied and said he didn't release the vehicle into the wild. He doesn't release vehicles into the wild. Everyone kind of cracked up at that. It was a bit weird, but I guess it was just sort of so random, so unusual to say that. Blair then asked why the vehicle was allowed out of the chain of custody. Beth objected to that. The detective basically said there is no chain of custody. We search the vehicle, we get the evidence out of it, and then we give it back. We don't own the vehicle because of what we found inside it, and we got everything we needed from it. But it did make you think, why would you just give that back? You know, why would that be allowed to happen? Basically went on to ask him, did you find any shovel at the house? The shovel ordered from Amazon, allegedly. You find that at the house? And he said, nope. They said, did you search outside all around the house, like the grass and the pool? He said he searched all around the outside. Asked if you ever found the fireproof mat. No, was never found. And then basically said, when you discuss with a criminalist about the destruction of 2 bags, the human remains that were found at the tow yard, like what was the thoughts of the criminalist? And basically said, we didn't destroy the cadaver bag and the garbage bag, we just couldn't preserve it, and named the criminalist that kind of gave that order basically and took that decision. Basically just said, look, we didn't destroy it, we didn't destroy evidence, we just couldn't preserve it. It was just a mess to preserve. Now I'm honestly disappointed. I surely they can put that in a barrel and preserve it. Like, why can't you preserve that? Where did it go? You threw it in the trash. Like, what on earth? Where is it? That I just don't think that bodes well. I don't think that's going to be a bulletproof silver bullet defense for David, but it just makes you think, bro, how are you throwing away the bag? Like, keep the bag. I don't care how filthy it is. Keep it, and let's check that it wasn't the same shit off Amazon. I mean, that was kind of messed up. So both Beth and Claire kind of declined any more questions with that detective, and Blair actually went and sat back next to David and kind of rubbed him on the shoulder after that testimony. So that was the end of that. Now, there was another kind of long piece of testimony from a financial manager of David's who had worked with Josh Marshall and Robert Morgenroth, but I think I'm going to actually leave that for now. Probably come back tomorrow because I'm very tired. I do need to get up very early to get down to the courthouse, and I also think that it would be good to just wait because they kind of ended this. I'm so tired, I can't even think. They kind of ended this testimony sort of right in the middle. They said it got to 4 o'clock. They were like, oh, we've had enough now. We're going to wrap it up for the day. So he did drop some really big bombs of information, but it probably will make sense to just give you like a more full update on what he had to say once we've heard everything. And I'm just tired. I'm not really going to make a very good video on that. I've got to go and censor out all these addresses now, which is annoying. And that's going to take me a bunch of time too. So I will catch you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching that. Sorry, my energy levels have declined to this point, but it's just been a lot going on. But I really appreciate you guys supporting me, trusting me as your news source on this one. And I'm going to keep you guys posted as much as I possibly can as we go forward into the next stages of this trial. Hopefully I get in the courtroom tomorrow. If I don't, here's what it is. I will certainly try my best. But thank you so much for your support, for watching. I will catch you guys in the next video. I'm out. Bye.